So I hope you enjoyed your break. Now, there's too many of us in this class to go around the room and everybody say their name, unfortunately, because I really want to know who you are. But at the very least, let's get some. Let me get an idea of, on a group basis, who the class is. So, at the break, I was told that most of you are Albanian. Who's Albanian? And Northern Macedonian in the back. Okay. Woo. Anybody? Where else? Anyone else? From somewhere else? Where are you from?
Serbia.
Serbia. Oh, and there's a few Serbian.
No, there are a lot of Serbian guys, but they're missing today.
No, we are
I'm missing today.
Yeah.
You're from
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria? Oh, okay.
There
Wow.
are others from Bulgaria too?
Yes. 3. You are from Bulgaria?
Oh, okay, good.
We have one from France.
One from
And
France.
Yeah. Victoire.
We can make fun of him if he were. Oh, he's going to see us. Victoire. Oh, her. Victoire.
She. Not Victoria. Victoria.
Okay.
We are making marketing.
So tell me about the legal system. Let's start with Albania. Tell me about the legal system, the constitution. It's
So we are, if I may?
Yeah.
We have a parliamentary system.
Parliamentary system, okay.
Yeah.
Since when?
Since 91.
1991?
1991. And we have a civil law.
Civil law, okay.
Common law, yeah, civil law system. We have the legal system is organized with first in three scales of courts. We have the district court, we have appellate court, and the Supreme Court, and we have also constitutional court.
Okay.
So, which is more or less the system of the civil law.
Yes, okay. All right.
And we have parliament with one chamber.
One chamber.
One room, yeah, just one room, representative from all the parliamentary.
Yeah.
We have the president, which is elected from parliament. And what else?
Oh, the president's elected by parliament.
Yeah, by parliament, and our democracy is very young. Yeah, it's very young. Our democracy is
Fragile.
Yeah, fragile. Yeah, fragile. I like that.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's what the next thing I wanted to ask about. Okay, so since 1991, constitutional system, parliamentary system, but it's not developed, not very developed.
Even
We're like a baby struggling to live. Sometimes we get sick. We get sick very often.
Yes, okay.
And
And what were you going to say?
our judicial system, for example, is Supreme Court doesn't work for the moment, and the appellate court is becoming like the
We have an
strongest
eternal
one.
crisis that is not good to say no.
Yeah,
Of the
really.
family. It's
Right.
a crisis for the moment, but
It's not. I'm not talking about.
generally I would like to say regarding the course, especially
Yeah.
after the introduction of RESI for our system in general, that yes, it's true that for these things we almost doesn't have any experience.
For intellectual property.
Because it's not so important in our country.
Yet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Not yet, yes, it's true. The course doesn't give too much. There is a law, but
it's
no
not,
practice.
Is there copyright
The way
law
of
and
Yes, we do
copyright,
have.
trademark,
Yeah.
and
We
patent?
have
We do
patent,
have.
trademark, copyrights. We do have the law, but the mentality or
Companies are not.
the practice is not work almost.
It's not
Only
very
for
rich.
big firms,
Yes.
for example, Coca-Cola company, who comes in our country and the first thing they do is sign in the registry something.
Yes.
But only the big firms, but in
International.
almost nothing.
Well,
So we're
but
not very sorry in general. I
Yeah.
want to apologize in the name of my colleagues if they allows me, because we are not experienced in this cases or
yeah.
this is the true unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
Very
That's
new for us.
not uncommon in the School of
We
American.
practice it. Nobody else. I remember I have like 20 years in the working for big firms in our country, big firm
Yeah. Yeah.
called for 10 years, and after that taking the courage to open my own office. It's not easy at all, but anyway. And only once happened to me, an actor asked me, somebody is asking me to make an advertisement, can you help me to have an agreement with them? And it was very fun,
Of
most
course.
of all. But the only one who asked me, after all, he didn't do an agreement because the company didn't like to do such long steps.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay. Well,
But
but eventually, you may
it's
get
very
there.
interesting, yes.
Eventually they're starting. Okay, it's a slow process because
It's not depending only in our as lawyers. Even the court should be a bit waiting or a little bit learned with these ideas, or because if you go in the court with such, I was talking before, everybody's laughing. People have more serious problem. Now you are coming here for a singer to protect this. Come on, you know?
Yeah.
At least enough. I don't know.
Okay.
So it needs some time yet to go, but it's a good chance for us because the first ones, okay, depends.
That's like me in
But first
1993.
ones,
Yeah.
hopefully
Absolutely.
they laugh.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
laughing ones. But okay.
And did you have something to add? You were starting
No,
to
I was
say.
saying about the system. Since the Albanian independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1912, 1912 usually it was a republican system. Only from 1928 to 1939, before the Second World War started, we had monarchy. We had a king.
Yeah.
So that's where after Second World War, it was a Republican system, but it was a thing. It was
dictatorship.
We have no
It was
pluralism during
communism.
this.
Yeah.
It was the communism.
So the
period.
Soviet
Only
system.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's our sui generis system.
Yeah,
Believe me, it's Albanian system.
It's a unique, yeah.
It was a
Something
people's
totally
republic. It was people's republic.
Okay. Fair enough. But then since 1991,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
and what about
change?
the courts? Are they corrupt?
No.
Shut down the camera, please.
Okay,
Turn it off.
now we are running a kind of process that is called reform in justice. And with our
If you need reform, that must mean.
Yes.
No, that's
Reform, you know what is going to happen? I mentioned before that the Supreme Court is not working due to this process. Because the judges are, and the Constitutional Court. But okay, Supreme Court is more because most of the cases of the appellate court are going to Supreme Court. And so most of the judges are discharged
It
from
doesn't
the
have
duty
judges.
due to this reform and justice because they couldn't pass the, let's
Vetting
say, the requirement of corruption issues. So with the support of our...
The problem is what's going to be the outcome of it. So the politics has its hands on it, so it's going to be the same thing, different day. But
Yeah, being a small country
we're
has
just
this
looking
kind of
forward
issues.
to give our experience to the American judges.
Yeah. Okay. And what about Northern Macedonia? What about the legal system there?
Democratic. We
Democratic.
have parliament with one chamber since 1991. We have a court system, with basic courts, appellate courts, and then the Supreme Court. Then we have one constitution and one administrative court with
Okay, there are special courts.
with vice with Supreme Administrative Court.
Okay. Civil law system.
Exactly.
We
Okay.
all are for civil law system. It's
Yeah.
something new from
Can I add something?
Yes. Absolutely.
Even
Where are you from again?
Albania.
Okay.
Even though in Albania we have civil law, the Supreme Courts use also
president.
the
No.
precedents and also some
Decisions.
decisions of the Supreme Court are from the other course, the lower course. The lower course.
So the meaning is,
they
the meaning is
unify the
that now,
practice.
the Supreme Court is trying to unify the cases,
practice.
the practice. So for the district court and appellate court to have one line referring to one case, but the same.
It's not
It's,
same.
it's the same. It's not binding, but it's as a reference.
Which the Supreme Court.
Persuasive.
It's binding.
Binding
It's
Supreme
binding.
Court,
Unification of the
unifying.
practice is binding.
It's not
But
like
it's
present.
day to night with the American system.
It's not by law, it's as a practice.
So, well, how do you know about the American system? From school?
Yes. From movies.
You know,
Entertainment.
you get the first ideas from Perry Mason.
Very-
And that's
Very
what
nice.
gets you into it and trying to study law, you know,
yeah.
the idealism of it. And
I'll
then
tell you.
after some time, when you're not 13 but 20, 22, 24, you find out that Santa really doesn't exist.
Even though it doesn't have yet.
Right. You know, but it's interesting because there's I told you the 3 people have had dinner with me in Chicago after having been through School of American Law. 2 are from the Athens class, and those 2 are Macedonians, and they're in Chicago right now. You don't know them, do you? Ilya?
Yeah, we know.
Oh, you know Ilya and Phil? Oh, okay.
Your friends.
Oh, so they love
Chicago.
They love Chicago, but they love the American legal system. Ilya is like, he just wants to advocate.
Yeah.
It's practical.
It's practical.
I
the
think that
difference in our system.
there is more space in the American legal system
Because-
where you can find cases,
because
practice, and you can.
Are more important
Even more.
rights and obligations, I believe.
It's
Oh, our system is
Citizens
more.
or
it's
people
more
or
direct. It's right to the
companies.
core. It's more practical. It's
More practical. Yes.
Well, it's far more detailed, right?
Yeah.
It's because, and let's face it, you know, Americans, we like to think we've been around for so long, right? It's only 250 years.
Yeah.
But as compared to, what, 91, 01, 11, 25, 27 years, 250 is a lot. A lot of time to develop laws, both statutory and case law, in a democratic system. So it's very, you know, the law is very comprehensive. And on the topic of intellectual property, you mentioned Coca-Cola. One of you mentioned
Yeah.
Coca-Cola. They don't value that company based on the number of cans of soda that they sell. They value that company based on the value of the trademark. Right.
Its fundamentals are strong. I mean,
Yeah.
the Constitution is since day one,
Yeah.
and it has the copyright at the very beginning of it. So, and we still have it.
You're talking my language, so that's a great segue. So
And we're trying to adopt it now with some. We were talking before at the background with some non-governmental organizations, which
yeah,
they're just there to collect some revenues and for their purposes of the organizers, I mean, and they're just collecting some fees from restaurants, bars, whatever, that play the music and etc. I mean, they're collecting on behalf and on the name of Michael Jackson,
right.
but
But
nothing going to Michael's inheritance.
Yeah.
well, certainly not to Michael, let alone to
Well,
his estate.
he's
Yeah,
he doesn't need it anymore, but I mean,
right. Well, and neither do his
Someone is
heirs, to be
inheriting.
honest.
so
Inheritance
but
rights.
this is how it's working. I mean, and you have what was funny for me. You have these authors, let's say, taking a text from a book, changing the first page, let's say, the cover, and putting their name on it, and just they're selling Victor Hugo
Yeah.
for Herion's work. So
In
Okay.
it's really messed up.
in your country.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really messed up.
It's everywhere.
No, it's.
Well,
I mean,
you
I'm
can do-
talking from
that's
my
pretty-
practice. I don't know anywhere.
That's pretty blatant. A pretty blatant infringement. But anyway, you were gonna say? Now you
We
forgot.
were discussing the same topic outside during the
Yeah, we
break.
Oh,
discussed this, because I previously worked in a collective management association, and what Michael Jackson and for the Serbian, Bulgarian, Albanian singers. Performers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not authors, performers. I was in Performers Association. And what the law is covering is that you have a permission if you don't collect enough money to divide them for your people. Yeah. And then if something leaves, then you can get them to the agreement, which is not okay. I mean, yeah.
Right. Well, because I mean, in your opinion, of the money generated, how much of it came from your people? What percentage of their music was performed as opposed to?
No one
2%
kept
maybe.
any
No, we have
stats.
no. There is stats, and they are like available for everyone to see it. But they create an agreement or another contract in-house that gives them permission to keep the money because of enlargement of the rights in country and to protect the performers and their rights, and then you don't leave enough money to get them out for the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not okay at all. But that company, I'm gladly it's
No more?
no more.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
All right. Well, so I'm glad you brought up the Constitution because most people wouldn't know about, how copyright and patent in the United States, not so much trademark, we'll get into that in a minute, but is right from the Constitution. And here it is. Article 1 of the Constitution, no less. Right? So, and how did you know that? From a course or?
We had all time Donnie before you, so.
Okay.
Introduction to American legal.
Okay. Introduction to American legal system.
Yes.
And they mentioned copyright in there. Okay, all right. Go good. All right, so.
Actually, we had
Important attachment.
From trade.
We can trademarks
Yeah.
with Maureen.
Okay.
So we have done some.
Okay.
So in a few occasions.
we are older.
So
Yeah.
I
This is
believe
our
that,
second
sorry, again, you know that here we are new students and old students.
Yeah, okay.
Some of them have started from September with
Well-
other courses. Me and myself, some others.
We're
Yeah.
not that old, but let's say old for.
We are old for the courses, not old for the
Okay,
age.
okay.
Right. All right. So, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. And it's only one sentence. And the Constitution is basically an enabling document, right? The Constitution has no laws in it per se. It enables Congress to enact laws on certain topics. And on the topic of intellectual property, the Constitution has one sentence, and this is it. To promote the progress of science and the useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Okay? For this purpose, Congress can enact laws, right? And what strikes me as a guy who I'm very much a copyright guy. I'm a very pro-author guy. And what strikes me about this is that it's in, and I don't think I knew this even until after law school. I had a copyright class in law school, we didn't talk about this. When I discovered that this was in the US Constitution, copyright law made so much more sense to me. And it's in Article 1, which means the founders of America were focused on a lot of things, but this was very important to them, right? When we think about, what's important in America and a lot of the free world now, for example, free speech, right? Freedom of religion, the right to bear arms. Those things aren't even in the Constitution in America. Those are in amendments to the Constitution. The founders didn't even think of, oh my gosh, people ought to be able to have whatever religion they want. But they thought we have to promote the progress of science and the useful arts by protecting authors and inventors. So this is the single sentence not only about copyright, but this is patent too, right? Because, yeah, authors and inventors, the exclusive right to their writings and discoveries. Writings is which? Copyright or patent? Copyright.
Copyright.
And discoveries?
Patent.
Patent, right? And on this enabling clause, Congress has enacted copyright laws in the United States. So, since there are more Albanians than any other in this, we'll in large part talk about Albania, but if something is different in any other country, I want you to speak up. So in Albania, is intellectual property in the Constitution? Do you know? Is there a single sentence in your Constitution?
I think yes.
We have a kind of article like
Yours,
that.
yes?
Okay. It's a property matter, so.
Okay. And I know, so in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when when all the republics were seceding from the Soviet Union, and a lot was happening in the world, even apart from the Soviet demise. I don't want to offend it. I don't want to choose the wrong words. I'm assuming that a lot of the constitutions that came into being at that time are similar, right?
Yes.
They probably, I mean, not probably,
Principles, yes.
yeah.
They are almost the same.
In general, at their core, yeah, because all of the republics at that time were doing it at the same time, and they were asking for the same advice and looking at the same models, right? So
From the same source.
from the same source, America, right? Yeah. And by the way, again, Americans, you know, Americans think we've been around forever. We also have big egos, but I know that America is a little. I don't know whether you all like America or hate America, but if you like it, don't be too short. Who likes Donald Trump?
For sure.
For sure, but maybe not so much for the whole government.
To be right in the next election. Do it right. You American people don't like this.
Who thinks he's going to go to jail?
Never.
Who
Did you
thinks?
have any president that went to jail? Never. They have.
He
Never.
gets too much money to go.
You had just one impeachment for this guy. This president.
Well, Clinton, that's in the modern era.
Clinton,
There's been more than one
Clinton,
impeachment.
before
But
Clinton,
I
but
think he's doing
Never
well
happened.
with the Korean guy, with Kim
He's a
Jong.
businessman, so he will make himself a deal.
so as in the Oscar was said, the last Oscar do it right for this time.
yeah.
People of America, so.
Well, we'll see. All right, but let's talk back to copyright and the Constitution. So, when I talk about copyright, I like to talk about this fellow, and you know who he is, right? Who doesn't know who this guy is? Why do I talk about him when I talk about copyright? Any ideas? Why is he important to me in copyright law?
Because he represents.
He's the first one of the most industry in the respective
Entertainment
one of the
industry.
first.
He's one of the first in that industry, and certainly one of the most valuable, right? Going on, 100 years or so of
Still.
Mickey Mouse
Yeah.
being a valuable intellectual property for the Walt Disney Company. What's that?
It's
Also,
not
first
first animated.
animated characters, first cartoons.
First one that was at least successful.
Successful.
Yeah,
Ah,
right.
I just bought yesterday for my daughter a t-shirt with
The shirt.
picture.
Okay.
With his face.
Okay. And was it official shirt or was it a counterfeit? You should bring it in tomorrow. We all want to see it.
We can find this out.
I want to look at the tag.
Yeah.
Right? We'll see. We'll see. Again, I'm a very pro-author person. I'm very protective of intellectual property rights. But I showed that video in class, right? I knew I was infringing the copyright by doing that, and I don't do it anymore. But in my youth, if you've gone to any sort of live event like a concert, or you want to buy a piece of merchandise, you can buy it inside the venue, or you can buy it outside the venue. And the ones outside the venue are a lot cheaper than the ones inside the venue. Why? Because they're counterfeit, typically. that's where you find the counterfeiters outside the venue in the parking lots. In my youth, I bought a lot of t-shirts in parking lots. I didn't really know why they were so much cheaper, but that's why. The owner of the intellectual property was getting no money from that. It was just basically the cost of the shirt. We all have our own sort of lines where, that we'll cross or not with regard to intellectual property or anything else. But yeah, Mickey Mouse is a very valuable copyright and trademark. And I like to talk, we'll come back to why I talk about him in the context of copyright in a minute. But this is a chart that shows, in the United States, all of the copyright acts that have been made law as a result of the enablement in the Constitution. Okay? There's not just been one, again, because we've been around for 250 years. There have been 6, in fact. And if you look at this, the red box in the lower right-hand corner, that's the very first copyright in the United States in 1790. So shortly after the Constitution came to be, Congress enacted the first copyright law. And the first copyright law said that the term of copyright was 14 years. And if you filed a piece of paper to get an extension, you could get another 14 years for a total of 28. Correct? So going back to the Constitution, and that what it says is Congress can enact laws to for a limited time, right? Grant exclusive rights to the author or inventor for a limited time. So when we look at the chart and we see 28 years, if you file the extension, does that seem like a limited time to you? We're now beginning a discussion of constitutionality, right? You hear that phrase thrown around a lot, particularly in America these days. That's unconstitutional. When somebody says something is unconstitutional, what it means is the law exceeds the boundaries set by the Constitution, right? So 14 plus 14 equals 28. Is that constitutional? Is that for a limited time? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not forever.
It's not forever. So from a literal perspective, as long as it's not forever, it's limited.
It's limited, yeah.
Right? So that's interesting. So we have, another thing that is big news in the United States right now, the Supreme Court, right? Because Donald Trump has already, did he do 1 or 2? He did 2. And it's likely he'll do a 3rd, right? And people are very concerned about this because there are conservative judges and there are liberal judges. Conservative judges typically appointed by Republicans like Trump, liberal judges typically appointed by Democrats like Joe Biden, who is probably already running for president. And a conservative judge reads the Constitution and looks at it literally, correct? That's what a conservative judge does. Doesn't interpret. What does it say? Literally, limited times, as long as it's not infinite, it's constitutional. That's what a conservative justice would say. A liberal justice would interpret that writing,
More broadly.
interpret it and try and ascertain what did the founders really mean, right? And some people would say, well, that's where justices should not go because it gives you the opportunity to make whatever point you want. Well, what did the founders mean? I think they meant this, to suit your own purposes. But anyway, I think there's little room for argument that 14 plus 14 for a total of 28. Little room for argument that that's not constitutional. In other words, it's a limited time, right? Then it took Congress another 50 years, 50, to enact the next copyright law. And in that next copyright law, what they said was, okay, the term of copyright is 28 years, no longer 14, 28, so they doubled it. And if you file that piece of paper to get an extension, another 14, so 42. 28 plus 14 equals 42. Is that a limited time? My conservative justice over here, Justice Scalia, says yes.
It's reasonable.
It's reasonable. Oh, it's interesting. Reasonable. Okay. Anybody say that's not a limited time? not constitutional.
Considering the lifespan of a human being,
Okay?
that's forever for the author.
Could be, right? Unless I author something when I'm 10 and I live to be 100, then a term of 40, but for the most part, particularly back at that time in 1831, could be for the whole lifetime. And so in order to promote the progress of science and the useful arts, because remember that's what the Constitution says, the Constitution doesn't say that the purpose of IP law is to protect authors and inventors. No. The purpose of IP law is to promote progress of science and the useful arts. And in order to do that, we protect inventors and authors. So by protecting someone for 42 years, is that constitutional?
No.
We're already getting to know. And why do you think it is? Because it
Because
protects...
it doesn't let the progress
Of the science.
of the science.
How is science, or how are the useful arts, so let's stick with copyright for a minute, how are the useful arts promoted when copyright expires? How does that promote the arts?
Because it comes in public domain.
And then anybody can use it to create their
Create
own.
something else.
Sounds free.
Yeah, and it's been said
For
before, right?
example, it wouldn't go until now with cover look was Elon Musk with the train until Elon Musk didn't put all his knowledge in public.
Are you talking about under the current law?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there.
No, I'm just talking about the progress of science because when it's in public domain, you can use it to develop something else.
Right.
The whole project of Hyperloop,
Hyperloop. Yeah.
train.
So now we're talking patents. But
Yeah. But that's science.
yeah,
On them.
right, okay.
That's the progress of science because until 3-4 years ago, no one didn't know about Hyperloop and the possibilities of that kind of technology. So
Right.
now when it is in a public domain, two separate companies are doing something in that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's been said before that nothing is new, right? I mean, music of today is based on Mozart, and you'll see, like who's heard of the blurred lines case?
Oh no.
Yeah, well, so you had that performing rights experience, but there's litigation in the United States all the time in the entertainment industry about songwriters, and you're infringing my work. Your new work isn't new. You just took mine. But nothing is new, right? So if copyright expires and the work falls into the public domain, then other authors can use that to create their own work. Yeah.
And it's not for performance, but it is for LeBron James tattoo artist.
For LeBron James tattoo artist.
Yeah, for the game. I'm not sure if you heard it.
No.
They made, not sure how the company, it's from NBA. They used LeBron and they used the tattoos, and now he's suing them.
Oh, in the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm developing a whole, for my semester-long course in this topic, we're going to do a whole week on tattoos. Because now there's enough law in that area. It's another developing area of the law. It started maybe 10 or 12 years ago, or not started, but the big publicized cases with the boxer Mike Tyson, and he has a face tattoo that was in the movie The Hangover. It was a big copyright case, and now a lot of copyright around tattoos. Who has a tattoo? What do you have? What is it?
I have two. One is, both are personal.
Okay, so it's not like a cartoon character. You don't have Mickey Mouse?
No. No, I have one is of Hannah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the other one is a leaf,
Okay.
but it's personal.
Okay. You have one or more? Is it a famous tattoo, like a cartoon character or something? No. Personal. Okay. Oh, very good.
I drew it
I have a
myself.
salamander.
You drew it yourself. Oh, so you have copyright in it.
I didn't sign it.
Yeah. Okay.
Registered.
So you can get a tattoo of Mickey Mouse. Let's stick with him. And in some tattoo parlors, you'll pay 2 or 3 times as much for that tattoo and as you will in other parlors. Now that has to do with the skill of the tattoo artist and the sanitary conditions in the salon, but also has to do with whether that artist is paying a license fee to manufacture copies of that copyrighted work. Because when you're doing a tattoo, you're manufacturing a copy. You need a license.
Wow, this is surprising.
You do. That's how developed intellectual property law has become in the United States. All right, so let's get back to our chart. So,
Limited or not limited?
limited or not limited? Let's get back to that. So this yellow box here, which is basically the same color as the background. I apologize for that, but that's 1909. So it took Congress almost 80 years to enact another copyright law. But when they did, they said, okay, 28 plus 14, not long enough. Now it's 28, plus if you filed a piece of paper for a renewal, another 28 for a total of 56. So some of you were already saying 42, not really constitutional. What about 56? Who thinks not constitutional? Okay. My conservative justice over here, she still thinks constitutional because it's not infinite. Telling the truth? Not interpreting the Constitution?
Because, I don't know, during this time, everybody or some authorities, did they decide the definition of limited?
Well,
Or still the liberals, let's think what they mean by limited? Because if there is a definition of limited,
well,
let's start from there.
okay.
And then just give them another 8 years to put a couple more years.
So we have
80 more years.
oh,
There's the definition. Restricted, I can't tell you how often I do this with clients when, we're talking about words in the contract and then what does this mean? What does this mean? And then often in a contract, you'll define the term with a definition in the contract, but you can't do that for every word. I would not do it for the word limited in a contract. Well, sometimes clients will ask you, what does it mean? Here's what it means. Restricted in size, amount or extent, few, small, or short. Okay? So, interestingly, we think a conservative justice is going to say anything that's not infinite is limited, right? But if you look at this definition of limited, small or short, okay? That's the dictionary definition. So, room to argue. Room to argue. All right, let's go back and look at the chart. So 56, we're already getting, this is probably one of the most conservative classes that I've taught in this regard, because we're only at 56 years, and a majority of you are saying, no, that's not limited as the founders intended. But when we get to 1976, so it took we'll skip this little green triangle here as a bunch of meaningless stuff. It did increase the term a little bit for certain types of works, but for the most part, not relevant to this discussion. The blue box, 1976, so it took Congress, again, another 70 years to enact the law. And in 1976 is when we first came to this concept of copyright lasts for some period of time, for the life of the author, plus some period of time thereafter. And in 1976, it was life plus 50 years. So to your point earlier, when I'm 10, and Michael Jackson is a good example because he was authoring intellectual properties when he was 10. Okay, so his life, he didn't live to be very old, but he could have lived to be 100. So 90 years plus another 50 for 140. For some people, this could be 140 years of copyright life. So is it constitutional or not?
No.
Does it? It does not. You say no. Anybody say it is? Huh?
I say it is.
You say it is.
You're not conservative anymore.
I love you. I love you. You gotta have point
You
counterpoint.
change your mind so easily with the Jaguar.
Again, because limited.
I from the beginning saying it is constitutional.
Right. You're just not gonna change. Okay. You've dug in
I
your
have
heels.
made opposite here now to see what will happen.
Okay.
Some
Now we need your.
shouldn't, should not do it.
We need your perspective. That's correct. So when we think about, again, about the reason for a copyright law from the Constitution, to promote the useful arts, right? Who benefits by the length of copyright having gone to life plus some number of years?
No doubt.
Huh?
No doubt. Publishers, brother.
Not the author, for sure.
No doubt.
Publishers, so corporate America, like Disney, right? Or who else? Who's benefiting from Michael Jackson?
Inherit.
Yeah, the heirs, right? Whether they be family or
But
he leaves it for somebody else.
it's normal because it's like it's like a businessman who built a factory and he inherited it to his family. Why not?
Yeah, but
A singer, that is the kind of property
That's-
or the job he can do.
for me
So should be inherited. Why not?
that's not an ongoing business, and they have no, I mean, no
It's
participation in it. It was Michael's talent and etc. So
Right, but to her point,
Even for the
they should
children,
create their own stuff and use their own stuff.
The children
Maybe.
had an, okay, it's not so similar with the idea of business, but what I want to say is, if somebody is very talented in a business, somebody else is talented in his profession, his property.
yeah. Well, when
Not
I talk
similar
about
in every detail, but
when I talk about intellectual property, I like to analogize to real property sometimes, right? It helps us to get our arms around it, right? And so if I build a house and it lasts for 1,000 years, probably in Greece, the Parthenon, right?
the children didn't contribute the
If my house lasts for 1,000 years, I can leave that to my children, and they can leave it to their children, and they can leave it to their children. Why shouldn't that apply to intellectual property? It applies to real property. Why? Well,
Because
progress of science and visual arts.
the progress of the useful arts. That's the whole purpose of copyright law.
you
Not
impede the progress.
you impede the progress by just allowing the benefit to go to those heirs. Right.
Does no benefit.
And let's face it, we might as well get to 1998. So it only took Congress then another 20 years to enact another law, which extended it yet again. What's the current term of copyright in the United States? Life plus 70, no longer life plus 50. Life plus 70. So now, if Michael Jackson authors at 10 years old, lives to be 100, the term of copyright is 160 years.
What does Sonny Bono have to do with that?
What does Sonny Bono have to do? Well, do you know who Sonny Bono is?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So he was a singer, Cher's husband. Then he became a congressman. He was the author of the bill in 1998 to extend the copyright by 20 years. And he sold that bill, he marketed that bill as being protective of artists because he was an artist. He said, hey, look, I'm a songwriter.
Personal interest.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he didn't try to hide that.
Yeah.
But in the end, copyright law is not supposed to be to protect artists, right? And in fact, the reason I bring up, I preface the whole discussion with my good friend Mickey Mouse is I want to show you another version of this chart with what's called the Mickey Mouse curve on it. Here's a copy of the chart, and this dotted line here shows you when the copyrights to the most valuable early Mickey Mouse animated cartoons would have expired had Congress not extended the term of copyright. So here you look back in 1976, Mickey Mouse about to expire. Oh, let's make the term longer to protect Disney. And in 1998, oh, Mickey Mouse is about to expire. Let's make the term longer to protect Disney. And the interesting thing is, those valuable copyrights, and it's not only Disney, they were a large lobbyer. They gave a lot of money to Sonny Bono's campaign, and they were paying a lot of lobbyists a lot of money to push through these laws. And so in 2023 is now when those copyrights will expire, Disney and others from around the same era, and they'll probably lobby again to extend again.
I thought I was going to have a Mickey Mouse tattoo.
No.
Free.
I don't have any tattoos.
Corporate America.
Corporate America. So, it's like many things in America, the corporation, a lot of things are in the legal system are more sophisticated in America than in a lot of the rest of the world. Our corruption is also more sophisticated, right? This is the kind of corruption because they'll pay campaign funds to elect a congressperson and then pay lobbyists to influence other congresspeople, which is a form of corruption. I think the interesting thing is that since it takes, in today's environment, it takes a long time to get something through Congress and signed into law, with the rights expiring in 2023, we're probably only a year or two away from the necessity to start the process to again extend the term. So, you know, you'll be done with the School of American Law by then, but I'm hopeful when it becomes news, oh, Congress is holding hearings on the length of copyright and whether they should extend it again, you remember this class and go, oh yeah, we talked about that. Because I'm pretty sure it's going to happen again.
For sure. Mickey Mouse cannot stay without.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll succeed, but they'll try. At least there will be hearings and probably a new bill and a vote. And
So far, it sounds like protecting business, not progress.
absolutely. But Disney would say, well, I am promoting the useful arts. I'm making sure it's for kids.
It's still something very wanted, very desirable, very funny.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, but the issue.
Somebody else want to do some
It's
other
stopping me
feature.
from creating another mouse with something with Mickey Mouse and some alterations of it, which might be something trendy, might be good, might be, I don't know.
Make another mouse, but not Mickey. Mickey is Mickey, like you're young.
Yeah, Mickey is Mickey, but Mickey with another ear.
With another ear.
It's not Mickey, it's something else. But you say to me you have Mickey's ears. So you're stopping me.
No, make crazy, not real.
That's capitalism, that's corporate America, so
I don't want to be conservative in the progress,
Yeah,
but for Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse. Don't copy Mickey Mouse, create something else.
Well, do you think it should be forever? Should it be longer than life plus 70?
I want to
No,
have
maybe I love Mickey Mouse too much and I cannot imagine to be transformed. Okay, it creates something else, but Mickey is Mickey.
I want to
but
have
forever?
cheaper and then
No, but then why all this thing to
Yes, it's forever.
respond always?
I
It's
want
my
to-
childhood is forever there.
Right, but what do you think? If Mickey's Mickey and you shouldn't copy it, should that be the case 200 years from now? Should Disney have the right 200 years from now? 500 years from now?
we're cloning people now, so I mean,
Or
well, but Mickey
That would be,
Then why the Congress postponed always?
because they're protecting the business.
yeah, somebody paid them.
So
a
let's
lot of
make
money.
A lot of money.
Somebody paid them.
You are
There's an
right.
offer, there's an acceptance, and there's consideration.
I don't,
Okay,
I
let's
don't,
make it free. Let's make it free after some time.
after
Let's
some
make it-
time. I don't think I don't agree with it, but I don't think it's unreasonable to say, well, no, if they own Mickey. Mickey's Mickey, and it should be, forever. Beyond my lifetime, so that's pretty much forever as far as I'm concerned. Why shouldn't it be? Well,
But it's art.
it's art. Oh, yeah, it is art.
Make it something else. This is what I don't get it.
Okay, I will make
Right.
Minnie, and Minnie will,
No.
they will say, no, you cannot make Minnie because we have Mickey Mouse and you don't have any art
But
anymore.
meaning is just
Yeah.
different.
It's something else in pattern because
They-
in pattern
they
you can
love-
use in pattern you can use and you need to have that
Yeah, I
one
can
in
use
pattern.
your-
But in this kind of
Yeah,
creations,
I can use your
this is
previous
very
Yeah, what
personal,
stops-
very symbolic, and it stays there. You have just to create something else different in order to.
A lot of friends for me, our friends, they are a group now. So
But you can have copyright over the movie, the cartoon.
If you want to use Mickey, pay royalties for Mickey.
Well, I love your point that Mickey is art because I'm sure Mickey started out as art, right? Can you imagine in let's say 1900, this, Steamboat Willie cartoon. I'll have to play it. Well, I'll play it right now.
It's like the Superman. They also have the case of Portugal.
Okay, it's like a song. After some years, you don't need to pay the vows.
Really?
But the song is there.
Oh.
So this is pretty much the first or one of the first. I mean, to us in today's world, right, with video games and Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty, and you know, this does not look all that spectacular or artful, right? But in 1900, for them to have the ability to create this and show it on screen, it was art. It was unique. It was novel, right? But it's become a product. It's no longer art, really. Well, he scares me.
Good old days.
Yeah.
So at the end, it's good to put some limits. You got the point?
I'll make it that.
Let me just bring up my Prezi back up and get to where I was. And all right, so I think we could go a little longer before we need a break, but it's a good stopping point, having just had that discussion about copyright and the Constitution. So why don't we take a break for 10 minutes, and we'll come back at 12:15.